The international break is over and the Premier League is back. The Matchbook Weekend Football Podcast is here. I'm your host, Daniel Hussey, joined, as always, by Mark O'Haire and Adrian Clarke, refreshed after the international break. We'll come to Mark in a second for our, a monthly Ireland section. Adrian, is there any? Did you do much for the international break? Get up to anything that you want to share with the listeners, or?
Not really. No. Kind of chilled a little bit. Still had to tick over with work, but yeah, it was quite nice just to take my foot off the gas a little bit and not have to watch quite as many games. I mean, the England games were pretty dull, I've got to say. A little bit of dodgy VAR in there against North Macedonia, some really poor officiating, but yeah, in general, it was quite an uninspired international window, I'd say.
Yeah, Mark, I was in it for Stephen Kenny's final game for Ireland, 1-1 against the mighty All Blacks. So, which would be a great result in rugby, obviously, but not in football when they're 103rd ranked in the world. But we're hopeful maybe we might get Lee Carsley rather than a Neil Lennon. But it's pretty depressing stuff to be an Irish fan right now. As much as I go on about Evan Ferguson on the podcast, it's really not a good time to be supporting Ireland at the moment.
No, it's not. I opted not to watch the New Zealand game for my sanity. But yeah, I mean, I've seen most of the other qualifiers, and it's pretty depressing stuff. And I think we said off air really, but I feel so sorry for Stephen Kenny that things haven't worked out. He's given a huge amount to Irish football and been a huge positive through his club and international career during the lower age groups. But things just haven't worked out. You feel for him really because he just hasn't got the tools to really work with at the minute. The standard of the Irish squad at the minute is probably one of the worst in my lifetime, really. So it's a huge rebuilding job, and I'm not sure there's going to be a quick fix, really. I've seen some of the names linked, and as you say, Lennon, Roy Keane, even Steve Bruce. It's just incredibly depressing and underwhelming, really. So yeah, Lee Carsley would be the one sort of hopeful option, but I'd be very surprised if he opted to leave England, to move across back to Ireland and coach the senior team. So we'll see how it works out. Obviously, this appointment is enormous, but as you've spoken about in other areas, there's bigger issues behind the scenes in the FAI right now, which probably need ironing out. And yeah, I'm not sure we're going to arrest the slide anytime soon, unfortunately.
I know we're not going to solve it on this podcast, but the FAI currently don't have a men's team sponsor going 3 years now, which is I have to think it's unheard of across Europe. But Adrian, final thing, Lee Carsley, I've compared him in my own head anyway, Mikel Arteta's rise, where he got his learnings under Pep Guardiola before taking the Arsenal job. And is Carsley learning in England and then getting the Ireland job? What do you reckon?
Well, I hope he's not taking too much notice of Gareth Southgate's in-game tactical management. And because if he is, then he's in trouble. But look, he won the under-21s championship, didn't he, the Euro? So that's a great thing to have on his CV. He is blessed with a lot of talented young English players. So, but look, yeah, you never know. I mean, of the candidates that you mentioned, he's certainly the most exciting, I would suggest, rather than going back to some of the older characters. He'll have some new ideas. But yeah, we'll have to wait and see. As Mark said, not that much to work with, unfortunately. So it's a tough gig for whoever gets it.
That'll be the last of the Ireland chat to March anyway, with the friendlies and the international chat. But we're looking forward to it's blockbuster, as good as it gets in the Premier League. City, Liverpool, Newcastle, Chelsea, Tottenham, Villa, and Everton versus Manchester United, which obviously has ramifications given Everton's recent point deduction. So those are the four marquee games, EFL and Europe as well. Well done to the guys. There's a couple of massive prizes put up on the podcast. Wolves and both seem to score. Yes, a personal highlight of mine, Adrian, as we stuck to our guns and picked the big prize selection. And of course, Mark landing his best long shot as well. So we're good winners there too. The guys are refreshed. Let's get straight into it. We will start with probably one of the biggest games of the season, Manchester City versus Liverpool. This is Saturday 12:30 game. It is on Sky because they picked it as a 5:30 game, as far as I know, but then they had to bring it forward due to police. Man City 176 favourites, Liverpool 4.7. The draw is 4.5. As you've seen throughout the Premier League, both teams to score heavily favoured. Yes, 158. Asian handicap line sees Liverpool get a 3/4 of a goal head start at above even money. And the goal line here is 3.5. So, Adrian, we'll kick off with you in this game. It's nice to see a title game not involving ourselves, so we can relax a little bit. But City Liverpool, it's a massive game for both clubs, isn't it? Like 6 points.
It's the top two. So it's the biggest game of the season so far. Obviously, Arsenal City was a biggie, but this feels maybe even more important. I mean, both teams are on incredible runs, aren't they? In different ways. Obviously, I know that City have slipped up of late, but But at home, Manchester City 23 straight wins in all competitions. I mean, it's absolutely amazing. A win here will equal the British record, I think, set by Sunderland in the 1890s. So they've done something very, very special on their own patch. But Liverpool have had some good results against them, haven't they, in recent times? And Liverpool themselves have lost one of their last 23 Premier League games, and that one was the controversial defeat at Spurs, which really shouldn't have been a defeat. So you don't sort of want to back against either side here, really, do you? But I will. And my inkling is that Manchester City have the stronger side, and that home. I just can't go against that home record, if I'm honest, Daniel. I think that it's so imperious. They're so consistent. And Liverpool away from home, despite picking up good results, have struggled at times, haven't they? I think they've trailed in each of their last 5 away games. They're not what you describe as super solid yet, are they? I think that Van Dijk is having a great season, but that defence, I think, is still questionable up against elite opposition. The makeup of the midfield will be fascinating. In the last game Liverpool played, they had Gakpo and Szoboszlai either side of Indo. If they go in with a midfield like that at the Etihad, it'd be very attacking, but I fear that they might get overrun. So yeah, it'd be a fascinating game tactically. Van Dijk against Haaland is a great duel, isn't it? Incidentally, Van Dijk's never been beaten by a team when he's played against Erling Haaland. Only met 5 times. I've done a bit of research on this for a piece I've written. 5 meetings, 4 wins for Van Dijk, and 1 draw. So that bodes well for Liverpool. But I'm going to go against them. I'm going to go with Manchester City to win and both teams to score. I think that both teams to score seems to be almost nailed on with Liverpool away games. I mean, it's happened in every single one this season. And going back quite a while, they've been involved in a lot of high-scoring away games. You'd always back Liverpool to score. I think that they'll target the left-back area for sure. Guardiola or Ake, I think a lot of goals have been conceded down that side. And they're a little bit vulnerable, City, to counters and direct attacks, longer passes. I think that Liverpool will look to utilise the pace of Salah in this game. So I think Liverpool will have that threat, but I don't see Manchester City failing to score a couple of goals here. I just think that up against a team that's got very attacking midfield, that aren't that solid away from home, I think that they can come out on top Manchester City in quite an exciting match. So that's the way I'm heading with this one.
Love that Haaland Van Dijk stuff. I can see that pubs across the country sitting down and people impressing their friends. Van Dijk's won 4 of the 5 games against Haaland, and everyone's like, what? So no, I love it. I love it, Adrian. So that's 298 selection. City and both teams to score. Mark, where are you at in terms of a bet here?
Yeah, very excited to have the Premier League back, and obviously this match is a blockbuster, but just disappointed by the timing of the game to come immediately after an international break and be the early kickoff as well. We know Jurgen Klopp has made a big fuss about this particular time slot in the past. It's the 3rd time it's occurred this season. We've only had 3 international breaks, and Liverpool's performances in those previous 2 against Wolves and Everton have been pretty ordinary, even if they have managed to get the points. So I think it's understandable. And I think if you look at the players involved in international duty, you've got 4 Liverpool players who've been in South America involved in, high magnitude matches on Tuesday night. Alisson, McAllister, Darwin and Luis Diaz. None of those will be back in Merseyside before Wednesday night at the earliest. So it's a very quick turnaround. In contrast, Julian Alvarez was the only City player in South America on Tuesday night. So there's an advantage there for City. And I think there's also an advantage for City in the fact that they pulled out so many players from international duty with knocks, niggles, muscle strains, whatever the excuses were. From my research, all I can see looks nailed on that De Bruyne and Kovacic are the certainties to miss out for Man City. There's question marks over Stones, but basically everyone else should be okay. So there's advantage there again. Obviously, the home advantage, which Adrian has alluded to as well, about the Etihad being such a fortress. In terms of both teams this season, I think there's similarities, actually. They've both been getting good results, generating quite positive momentum without really coming close to top gear consistently. And, Liverpool have been a winning machine at Anfield, but also unconvincing at times on their travels. They're still without a clean sheet away from home failed to win at Brighton when playing well, failed to win at Chelsea on the opening weekend when you felt that could have been a good opportunity for them. Beaten at Spurs, obviously, in that match, and sort of heading to defeat at Newcastle as well before that electric final, took 20 minutes from Darwin. So I looked at their record since the start of last season. It's 9 defeats and 25 away Premier League days, giving up 1.52 goals per game on average. It's not great. That needs to be arrested if they are going to challenge City and possibly usurp them in the title race. But in terms of a betting view, difficult to really disagree with where the market is at right now. I think if you took underlying performance data and sort of spat out prices based on what we've seen so far this season, perhaps City would be very slightly too short. But I just think with the conditioning, the timing of the fixture, the home advantage as well, and the levels that we know City can get to, especially at Etihad, you have to favour City in this environment. And they're just a more settled, consistent unit right now compared to where Liverpool are at. You know, they're coming into the campaign. We still are in November, and they're rebuilding that midfield, whereas Man City are pretty, well, we know they're starting 11 pretty much already. So, yeah, my selection here is Man City to win and under 4.5 goals. I put it in at 2.4. It's 2.44 right now on Matchbook Exchange. I think it's a really nice and decent leap in price. Despite all the sort of extraordinary goal-scoring talent on both sides, I'm not convinced this game escalates into the shootout that perhaps we hope it will be. We've seen City's matches against Newcastle and Arsenal fall well below sort of pre-match kind of excitement expectations. And this fixture has got a tendency to produce goals, but I think it's still quite a big leap to expect there to be 5 goals or more in this fixture. It's a high magnitude match. There's a huge amount on the line. I'm not saying both teams take a must not lose attitude, but I think there will be a heavy respect, as there always is from the two coaches, compared with the strengths of both sides too. So I do back City to win, but I just think that price leap from around 175 to 2.44 is enough to get me interested, actually. You've got the 1-0, 2-0, 3-0, 4-0, 2-1 and 3-1 on side. And if City are going to win this game, those look the most likely correct scores. I'd be surprised if City scored 5, but also if City are going to win, it's unlikely Liverpool score at least twice. So yeah, I think that kind of covers you in case it is one of these kind of tentative low-scoring fixtures, which we've seen City being involved with this season, but also if things do escalate a bit further as well.
Okay, yeah, take your pick. If you're the listener, City under 4.5 or City both teams to score 2.98. I am going to lean for the podcast selection, City both teams to score, just given that boost in price and just in case the game escalates at the 12:30 kickoff. But that's 2.98, City and both teams to score. Incidentally, if you are watching on the YouTube, do hit that like button, be much appreciated, and do comment and get involved in terms of your best bet for the weekend. We'll go to our second game, and sometimes a big game just slips through the crack and ends up at 3 o'clock on a Saturday. It's Newcastle versus Chelsea. We'll take a look at the betting that we currently have in the matchup betting exchange. Newcastle 2.7, Chelsea 2.8. Draw is 3.6. Both teams to score, yes. A little bit bigger than usual, 171. At the Asian handicap line, effectively a draw no bet market. Newcastle slight favourites there at 195. And the goal line here is 2.5. Mark, there were loads of big marquee fixtures, which is why ultimately this game was 3 o'clock. But I did feel it's sort of that now and again, maybe twice a season, we get a really quality game at 3 o'clock on a Saturday. It's just the way it is sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is a big game for both teams, really. Bournemouth doing the business for our long shot before the international break, but circumstances felt right to oppose Newcastle at that specific moment off the back of a Champions League match with the injuries and suspensions piling up. And they did look knackered in that match at Bournemouth, and Eddie Howe said something similar post-match, that the energy just wasn't there. So I wonder whether they've had the opportunity to rest and refresh. Obviously, a lot of those players who are fit and available will have been around the world playing for their international teams as well. But interestingly, Newcastle have played 4 games on the weekends after their Champions League fixtures and have dropped points in 3 of them. And they were lucky to not get worse results, actually, in most of those fixtures too. And, you know, Bournemouth, Nick Pope was their best player. They went into that match without 9 players, no fit strikers, and Almiron went off early as well. Now, early news suggests that Isak, Almiron and Cher could all come back in to contention here. And Bruno Guimaraes is back from a ban as well. So that's big for Newcastle. However, he and Joe Linton were in South America midweek as well. Got this game on Saturday as well. So quick turnaround. And Lewis Hall can't face his parent club either. So they're still missing plenty of players, but they're probably healthier than they were last time out. And clearly, if Isak and Almiron are available, that's a big bonus. For Chelsea, Enzo and Moises Caicedo were in South America. Nicholas Jackson was in Togo on Tuesday for African qualifiers. So they're still missing plenty of players themselves as well. But there's chatter that Nicholas and Cuckoo could be involved for the first time here. Lavia as well, potentially in the squad too. So positive signs in the treatment room for Chelsea. But they don't have a great record at Newcastle, Chelsea. They will arrive full of confidence, of course, with the character, the quality they showed in that 4-4 draw with Man City. They've now scored 4 goals or more in 3 of the last 5 league games. And their matches have been really lively, actually, for quite some time. If you go back to the start of October, Chelsea's 6 Premier League games have seen a total of 26 goals. That's 4.33 per game. And the XG generated in those fixtures came to 22.8. 62 shots on target overall. All 3 of those metrics are league leading in that 6-game sample, and suggests we could be in for an entertaining affair, because I think Chelsea have been at their best when they're playing teams who come forward, attack them, and show aggression. Newcastle certainly will do that at St James's Park. It's a venue that only Liverpool and Arsenal have won at since the start of last season. They have churned out 4 straight wins to 0 in the Premier League at home. But on first glance, I thought they did look a little bit bigger than anticipated, but I think that's largely down to the unavailability for Newcastle right now. And actually for Chelsea, I think they command respect. Obviously, they've lost just once in the last 6. They've beaten Spurs in that mad match and held Arsenal and Manchester City. Picked up a point against Liverpool already this season too. They do tend to come to the party when they play these bigger games. But I can find reasons to be with and against both teams here. So I found this quite a tricky betting heat. So I've kind of opted for the draw. My main selection was actually both teams to score. I put it in at 173 in my notes on Wednesday, but I came on this morning as 166. It's now jumped back up to 171. So the market kind of moving around a bit there. But I think both teams can and will score here. Newcastle have conceded in 5 of 6 against the top half. 5 of Chelsea's 6 against the top half has seen BTTS pay. So the way in which I've made this work is actually kind of combine the draw and both teams to score for a 4.6 shot, because, as I say, I can find positives and negatives in backing either team. I think the market is probably slightly too big on Newcastle. However, it's hard to have a firm view, I think, on Newcastle right now without knowing that team sheet, because, if those 3 players who are close to full fitness aren't involved, and suddenly that side starts to look very bare. So, I'm kind of happy to kind of keep my powder dry and just have a bit of a longer shot in this fixture.
Okay, draw both teams to score. That's available match result, and both teams to score markets on the Matchbook Betting Exchange. Adrian, you are happy to side with Newcastle, but I guess there is a bit of caution given the injuries that Mark alluded to there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I want to get them on side. I think they are a little bit big. Mark just said it. Since the start of last season, Arsenal and Liverpool are the only teams to have beaten them at St James's. So for me to be able to get Newcastle draw no bet at a price just under even money feels quite generous, if I'm being honest. I think 1.91, I think you just said it's 1.95 now. So that's appealing to me. I do think that a number of these players will be back. Guimaraes is certainly going to be back after that suspension, and Isak returning is massive. Almiron, very good player on his day. Always better, it feels, at St James's Park as well. Fabian Schär, it's vital that they get him fit and available. With Botman continued to be absent. Obviously, Dan Burns out as well. So it's not the A team for Newcastle, but it's St James's, and they've still got enough to be very, very competitive in this game. I think they've had a little bit of a downturn. Obviously, that defeat at Bournemouth wasn't good. They didn't play that very well against Arsenal, if I'm honest. I think that they created very little in that game. They scraped a draw at Wolves, didn't they? Second best in Dortmund. So I think they've had a little bit of a mediocre spell here. This is the sort of game that might just get everyone up for it, and to get their season back on track. Chelsea are improving. Obviously, if you can draw with City and draw with Arsenal, beat Spurs away, it looks good, doesn't it? And they are much more exciting. But they're really still a deeply flawed team, a little bit wild, and I couldn't back against Chelsea, home or away at the moment, to keep a clean sheet. I just think that they are going to leak goals. I've said before, I'm not a huge fan of their back four or goalkeeper at the moment. And as well as Chelsea are doing, and this momentum that Poch is building, the fact remains they've not beaten anyone this season, Chelsea, above 15th spot, apart from 9-man Spurs. they've not beaten anyone apart from a team that were reduced to 9 men. So I can't back Chelsea to go to St James's and win, whether they're improving or not. So, to get Newcastle on side here with that home record, with the players returning, with the safety net of getting our money back if it is a draw, feels okay to me. I'm happy to plough in on this one.
Okay, yeah, happy to go in with you, Adrian. Newcastle draw no bet, 195 currently on the Matchable Betting Exchange. Really competitively priced there currently as we record on Thursday morning. Mark with a very interesting one draw, and both teams to score yes, 4.6 if you're looking for a fun bet for the 3 o'clock. We will skip ahead to Super Sunday, which I think is a 7.2 out of 10 Super Sunday. There's a lot of intrigue in this. I got it way wrong 2 weeks ago because it was a 4-4 draw between City and Chelsea.
You're going to have to explain these rating systems and how you get to them at some point.
Of course. Yeah, just not right now. Tottenham 238, Villa 2.9. The draw is available at 4.0. Both teams to score yes, 1.5. That is short, I have to say. The Asian handicap line sees Villa get a quarter goal head start at 183, and the total is 3.5. But again, that is heavy favourite towards under at 167. So, Adrian, back with you. 2 really exciting teams to watch this year. Probably a different trajectories over the last couple of weeks, just given results. But where are you at in terms of finding a bet?
Welcome to the Highline Derby. That's where I'm at. It's just, I mean, I'm just envisioning this game that's played in a corridor of about 20 yards either side of the halfway line, because I mean, Tottenham, continued to play that way, didn't they? With Dyer and Davis as their centre halves, there was no fear from Postecoglou. They still squeeze right up to the halfway line, often causing causing the team issues. And we know that Unai Emery loves that as well. He will squeeze up to that halfway. So it's going to be fascinating. Either the whole match will be played out in sort of like a 30-yard area, or we're going to see toing and throwing of players going through on 1v1s. It could go either way. With that in mind, I must admit I was looking at over 3.5 at a price of 2.32 and was a little bit tempted, but I've shied away from that in the end. Wolves battered Spurs. I know that they scored the 2 goals right at the end of the game, but they created all of the chances, and it was slightly alarming. I would have been alarmed if I was a Tottenham fan, which I'm definitely not. If I would have watched that performance and the way that Wolves carved them open, in behind, especially out wide as well, when the 2 fullbacks invert, and if you can win it and then flick it out wide really quickly, there's a lot of space to be had, and I think that Villa will look to do something like that, look to copy basically Gary O'Neill's tactics in this game. And they've got 2 real quickies up top, haven't they? In Watkins and Diaby, who are very, very mobile. So I can see them causing this depleted Spurs rearguard. Of course, still no Van der Ven, still no Romero, causing them problems. So I'm looking at Villa having a positive result here. You can get them on side plus a quarter of a goal at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, and that appeals to me, because obviously the only way we don't make a profit is if the home win lands. It comes in at, I think, at 1.85 last time I looked for Villa, plus a quarter, and this bet is really based on Tottenham's absentees. You've got the 2 centre halves that are missing. Yves Bissouma is suspended for this game, which I think is really, really important as well. And James Maddison is, of course, out. If you take Son out of the equation, maybe Destiny Udogie, that's arguably their 4 best players this season, or 4 of their best 6 players this season are out of the game against a dangerous Villa team that have won 6 of their last 8 Premier League games. Yeah, they're not as good away. We know that. And they've thrown in a couple of no-shows, haven't they? Newcastle, Forest, Aston Villa. But I think there's a lot of confidence there. And I think that they will cause this depleted Spurs team problems. If you look at draw or Villa, so if you want to back the draw or a Villa win, it's 1.67. But this is really the same. It's Villa plus a quarter, and you're getting 1.85. So if this is the way you're thinking, absolutely go down this route rather than that shorter price. So yeah, look, I think it's a hard game to call. Could easily end up a draw, but I think there's enough in it to give Villa a real chance here, and I think they will smell blood. This is a great time to play Tottenham Hotspur with all of these key players out.
Okay, Villa plus a quarter, half your stake on drawn, about half your stake on effectively double chance. Mark, my question to you is the exact same one I asked 2 weeks ago. This Aston Villa team away from Villa Park, Adrian sort of alluded to those couple of no-shows. Is that a slight worry for you going into this game?
Yeah, of course it is. I wasn't so keen on them at the prices when they went to Nottingham Forest, but I was still underwhelmed, disappointed by their performance. Yes, they sort of dominated possession, dominated territory chances in that game, but they never really created any clear-cut opportunities for all the sort of bluster and set-piece opportunities they did have. They didn't really sort of threaten Forest consistently, really. And sure, they conceded 2 goals from outside the box, which is probably preventable, really. But even still, chuck in the whacking they got at Newcastle and Liverpool, it is slightly concerning. But there are small samples here, and all we're asking here, because I've got the same selection as Adrian, is Villa to avoid defeat at an injury and suspension ravaged Spurs side. And I think that's the key point here. So most of my notes here are very similar to Adrian, so I probably won't have to speak for too long. But I did want to be with goals for all the reasons Adrian outlined at the very beginning, the tactical approach of both teams, but the market's already well over that, and even combining overs and 2.5 over and BTTS is still only around 1.7, if not shorter. So, I'm going to sort of ignore the away concerns, really, just because Villa have won 2 of the last 3 trips to Tottenham. They did the double over Spurs last season. Sure, this is a very different Spurs side, but they are just 1 point behind Tottenham coming into this fixture right now, which is testament to how good Villa have been. And okay, yes, largely down to their flawless home record, but they have got the settled side, players in form. They're not massively hampered by injuries. And you look at that Tottenham team, Adrian mentioned a few of them, but chuck in even Perisic, Richarlison as well. You're missing at least 5 first-choice starters. And the beauty of Tottenham going into the start of the season was how consistent their team sheet was. Postecoglou picked the same side week in, week out. There was consistency about them, but they're coming into this match with Eric Dyer and Ben Davies probably being a makeshift central defensive combination. I agree, Bissouma is an enormous loss as well, and I think we saw those kind of vulnerabilities come to the fore in the last sort of 20 minutes at Molineux, where many of the fringe players who haven't got major minutes this season are going to take time to sort of readjust and sort of try and play in the same manner as which Postecoglou is asking. And they sat quite deep in that last 15 minutes at Molineux, tried to hold on to the lead, which isn't the Postecoglou way. And he said as much post-match, really, that he wanted his team to be a bit more positive in possession in those final 10, 15 minutes. And, if they do display any sort of vulnerabilities, I think Villa will be just the kind of team to sniff out those opportunities and make them pay. So, yeah, we're only asking Villa to avoid defeat here, and backing them with a quarter goal start at the price does appeal.
Yeah, it's amazing looking at the Premier League table, how close these two teams are to the top, and Villa's second top goal scorers in the Premier League. So it should be an exciting game. We will go to the main game, the 4:30 in the main slot. That is Everton versus Manchester United. Quick look at the betting, and we'll talk about what's the storylines from this game. But Everton 286, United 2.6. The draw is 3.55. Both teams to score. Favourite again, but a little bit longer or bigger at 1.7. The Asian handicap line, drawn no bet market, effectively United favourites at 189. And the goal line here is 2.5. Pretty even enough, but a favoured 185 for the over. So Mark, stick with you. If people did sleep under a rock for the international break, and maybe they just tune into this podcast, they might see the Premier League table and see Everton with that 10 points deduction. It's definitely going to galvanise the club, whether the appeal goes through or not, because then there's protest plan. They're flying a helicopter over Goodison. Goodison, that doesn't need much of an excuse for a good atmosphere, and it will be under the lights here against one of the biggest clubs in the Premier League.
Yeah, when the news broke about Everton's points deduction, I think I, like many punters, had a quick look to see who they were playing next and where it was at. And the assumption being that whoever's going to be the first visitors to Goodison Park is going to be in for a bit of treatment, really. And, you've seen, as you've just spoken about, really how Everton supporters have mobilised, have energised, really, with a huge kind of us against you type mentality. And, It just so happened that Everton were hosting Manchester United, and I'm very much buying into the narrative in this particular fixture, because I think Everton don't have a great record against United. 1 win in the last 8 league meetings. United have won 3 away Premier League games on the spin. They do have a decent record against bottom half sides under Ten Hag, but this does feel like a banana skin immediately after an international break, considering what's going on off the field. Based on expected goals data alone, Everton deserve to be shorter. Yes, their away results have been better than at Goodison Park, but I think they've been very unfortunate in some of those home matches. They dominated Wolves, Fulham and Luton despite losing all 3, deserved a point against Brighton, gave Arsenal quite a good workout despite a very narrow defeat, and they are starting to look like a Sean Dyche side, but with more quality than perhaps his Burnley side did. Defensively, pretty miserly. They've conceded 2 goals or more just once at Goodison this season. They've created plenty of opportunities from dead ball situations. They've got players of real presence in the box for set pieces, but they've also got that sort of guile, that battle in midfield, as well as wide players who can deliver balls into the box. So there's fight, there's character, and with that backing of the Goodison Park crowd, I think they can get something out of this match. So my first selection here was Everton plus a quarter, but I'm going to be bolder. Why not? Everton, draw no bet, Everton plus 0. It's 2.04. You're basically, for me, it feels like a free hit. United are the lowest scoring side in the top 12 of the Premier League. To me, it beggars belief that they're ahead of Newcastle in the Premier League table, and the fact that they've won 4 of the last 5. Now, injuries have hampered them, of course, but they do not look like a side that's won 4 of the last 5 in the Premier League. They remain unconvincing. I think the one positive you can take is Harry Maguire's form recently. He's come in from the substitutes bench, and he's been basically their best player over the last 4-6 weeks, which is probably saying something really. But I think getting back to the game at hand, I'm just happy to oppose United as favourites. I think Everton are lively underdogs in this fixture. I'm going to stop short from backing them to win the game at 2.88, just because I think the insurance of getting the draw on side is enough at odds against to get fully behind here. So, buying completely into the narrative here. This is going to be a difficult place for United to go to on Sunday, and I think Everton can get something out of the game. Okay,
interesting stuff. Adrian, Mark sort of mentioned it there, but Manchester United scored 13 league goals in 12 games. It is amazing in some ways that they're 6th in the Premier League.
Yeah, just not clicked at all, have they, going forward? Scored, 8 goals in their last 8 Premier League matches, won a game. It's not convincing at all. None of their forward players are really in form, are they? There's a doubt over Højlund, I think, ahead of this fixture. Eriksen's out, Casemiro's out. I think Johnny Evans is out, but it's not the biggest loss in the world. It remains. I said something similar about Chelsea. The highest ranked team they beat was 9-man Spurs, above 15th. Well, the highest side United have beaten this season are Brentford, who are 11th. So they've not been brilliant, and some of the recent wins have been scraped past some teams that are sort of in and around the relegation zone. So I couldn't get on side with United here. Not quite as confident in Everton, maybe as Mark. Obviously they'll be raging. There'll be a great atmosphere. Could go one of 2 ways. They could lose focus, in terms of the being too worked up here. That is a possibility. But it should be a positive with the atmosphere and that siege mentality that Sean Dyche is going to instill. So rather than picking a winner here, I wanted to go down the goals angle. We've talked about United and their lack of goals. Well, Everton at home don't score very many goals. I mean, that's going back a long time now. Most of their better performances have been away from home, or certainly better results. 3-0 is their only home win this season against Bournemouth. The other games, they've scored fewer goals. So, I'm looking at under 2.5 goals as my pick here, which is the right side of even money, which is good. They've scored 2 goals, Everton, in 5 matches against top half sides this term. So against the better teams, they've struggled to score. So that's something to take into account. And if you look back at the Dyche era, 10 of their 15 home games under Sean Dyche have gone under 2.5. And when you take into account, United having to dig in here, not being fluent as an attacking force, Everton relatively poor record against top sides, then I can see this being low scoring. I can see it being 0-0, 1-0, either way, one apiece. Or even a 2-0, and all of those score lines will land us the win, won't they? So yeah, under 2.5 for me.
There's a score lines completely close in the match of betting exchange. Do check that out. Under 2.5 goals, 2.0. If you really lock in, nice confidence figure. Then on a bet, 2.0. Buying into the game.
Can't really hear you, Dan.
Yeah, Dan, your mic. I don't know if there's something's going on with your mic, Dan. It's
Can you hear me? I'll go to you, Adrian, for EFL selections.
You can sort out your mics. Right. In terms of EFL, I've got a couple of selections. First one is in the Championship. Huddersfield take on Southampton. I mean, contrasting form, to say the least. Yes, Huddersfield have not been good at all of late. Southampton are absolutely flying. 6 wins, 2 draws from their last 8 games, Southampton. And all of them have been achieved with under 4.5 goals, which is why I'm headed towards a Southampton to win and under 4.5 here. They've calmed down. It was a really wild start to the season for Russell Martin and his team, and they were scoring lots but conceding loads. They've settled into a better groove now, more of a balanced style of play, settled starting 11, and as a consequence, they're grinding out wins. And this will have to be a grind, because Darren Moore at Huddersfield hasn't brought the progressive attacking football that maybe the ownership wanted. Certainly not yet. I mean, he hasn't got any strikers, so that kind of does hamstring him a little bit, I've got to say. But there've been some really cautious performances of late. 5-4-1. They'll put everybody behind the ball, Huddersfield. And in those 3 games where they've lined up as a 5-4-1, they were outshot 20-2 by Hull, 9-5 by Watford, and 20-5 by Leeds United. And across those matches, so basically they had 12 shots in 3 games, Huddersfield Town, and they averaged 26.4% of possession in those matches. This is going to be a training game. This is going to be Huddersfield at home, sat on the edge of their 18-yard box, men behind the ball, asking Southampton to break them down. It doesn't put me off of Southampton completely, because I think they've got very good players. They're in form, and I think they'll find a way, but it won't be high scoring. I can't see this being a battering, because Huddersfield won't come out. So, yeah, for me to get pretty much the most informed team in the division against an absolutely out of form team that barely score a goal at better than even money, I'm really pleased to get Southampton on side here and under 4.5.
Okay, sounds good. The second pick is League One for you, Adrian.
Yeah, I'm going into League One here. It's the new manager bounce that's tipped the balance, as well as the quality of the 2 sides. It's Cheltenham against Oxford at Wadden Road. It's not called that now. I think it's the completely Suzuki Stadium, isn't it? Oxford have got a new gaffer, Des Buckingham. Liam Manning was headhunted by Bristol City. Des Buckingham, you might not have heard of him. He's an Oxford born, worked at the club under Chris Wilder. Years ago, he's gone and made his way as a coach overseas. Unbelievably successful over in New Zealand, with Australia as well, with Melbourne, and more recently with India with Mumbai. I think they won the league. So he's got a great CV, and they've brought him home. And I think that we all know about new manager bounces, and they can be really, really effective. So look, Oxford are the best away team in League One, 18 points from 8 games. Cheltenham have the worst home record in League One, just 5 points from their 8 home games. So there you have it. You know, the worst home team against the best away side. Oxford, free scoring. They've scored at least 2 goals in 11 of their 16 games overall. Cheltenham, as we know, couldn't score for, was it 10 games? They've scored more than 1 just twice this season. So look, for Oxford to win this game, they might only need to score 1. Certainly, probably wouldn't need to score more than 2 goals. I've been looking at the respective records. Cheltenham, averaged 0.38 goals at home. Oxford averaged 2 goals away from home. So everything points towards an Oxford win here. But Cheltenham don't get blown away that often, which is why I've chucked in the under 3.5 here. Just 1 of Cheltenham's 16 matches have seen 4 goals or more this season. So they're more than capable of keeping it tight. And actually for Oxford, even though they're flying high, 12 of their 16 games have gone under 3.5 as well. So the pattern suggests that Oxford will win, but it won't be a particularly high scoring game. So 2.35 is the price there on Oxford under 3.5.
Okay, Adrian, it's the completely Suzuki Stadium. Is that it, or what?
That's it.
Go for it again.
Suzuki Stadium. The completely Suzuki Stadium. Yeah.
Very interesting. As names goes, that's quite outrageous, to be fair. Just a couple of EFL selections, as well as all the selections in the Premier League will be available on Matchbook Insights from Thursday lunchtime. European bets, or at least rest of the world bets, Mark. A couple here. Start off with Spain in the second division.
Yeah, I mean, if you like the random stadium names, you'll look forward to the one proposed in Adrian's best bet, because that is probably the best stadium name in the UK at the minute. But yeah, I'm going to start in Spain, the Segunda, the second tier in Spain. I'm going to back Burgos to beat Andorra at 2.4. Burgos are very much a black and white team, hugely impressive at home, 6 wins and unbeaten in 8 home fixtures this season, compared to earning just 1 point from 8 away games. They're at home this weekend, of course, and their XG supremacy, their XG process at home is very, very impressive. It's the third best in the division, plus 6.8 XG supremacy across those 8 fixtures. Shows how strong they can be. They beat the league leaders Leganés at home. They also beat high-flying Eibar at home as well. And they really should fancy their chances against Andorra, who do not travel well. And that's understandable, really. There's no major airport, there's no major train station in Andorra, which means journeys to away fixtures can be long, can be laboured. They're often in coaches. And even though the geographic difference between the two teams on a map doesn't look quite severe, Google reckons it's about a 7-hour car journey between the two clubs, which is not ideal when you've got no major airport or train station nearby. So it could be quite a long away day for Andorra. Last weekend, they bagged a 0-0 away at Villarreal B team, but that game was played in quite comical, foggy conditions, really, where it's very hard to see anything. So before that match, they'd lost 4 of 7 away days, winning just once. And actually, if you exclude their results against the bottom 4, they'd earned just 1 point from 5 fixtures away from home against the rest of the division, conceding twice or more in 4 of those 5 defeats as well. So home and away, Andorra are now winless in 7. And they're going to Burgos, who just look a little bit underrated because that home record is exceptionally strong. As I said, 6 wins from 8 unbeaten games, returning a plus 6.8 expected goals supremacy in their favour too. So 2.4 looks a big price. We're going to move on to Brazil on Sunday. The Serie A, or the Brasileiro, whichever you want to call it, really is offering probably the best title race across the globe, actually. With 4 rounds to play, there's basically 6 sides in with a realistic chance of taking the title, which is kind of crazy considering Botafogo were quite clear runners for most of the season before hitting the buffers in quite spectacular fashion. Now, one of the teams in contention to win the title is Palmeiras, the Giants from Sao Paulo, last season's champions, Copa Libertadores winners twice in the last 3 years as well. And they seem to have timed their challenge to perfection. 6 wins in the last 7 league matches. And look, their away form has been relatively patchy, but they have lost just once at teams outside of the top 8. Now, one side who have basically nothing left to play for are Fortaleza, who are their opposition on Sunday night. They have enjoyed quite a good campaign overall because they reached the Copa Sudamericana final. They lost that match, but things have really unravelled since. They were fielding kind of much changed teams before and after semi-final action and the final, putting all their investment, all their focus in that Copa Sudamericana final. But since then, basically, they're in no man's land in the league. So they've taken their foot off the gas and things have spiraled, really. They've taken just 1 point from the last 7 games. They failed to score in 4 of those. And it's not like they've been unfortunate either. If you look at the XG process over the last 8 games, Fortaleza rank rock bottom. And interestingly, Palmeiras rank top of the same metrics. So we've got 2 teams in polar opposite form. Palmeiras have had a full midweek as well to rest and prepare. Fortaleza are in action on Wednesday night as well. So it's quite a quick turnaround for them. So, as I say, polar opposite form, rest advantage, motivational advantage. Palmeiras are around 2.3 to win this game.
Just a quick one. What's the difference between the Andorra national team and FC Andorra? Like, are they completely different, or are they basically the same set of players?
No, there won't be the same set of players, I don't think. But yeah, most of them probably will be. I'm not really sure, to be honest. But Piqué, Gerard Piqué owns them. I don't know if you knew that. It's his club,
I didn't know they were a Liga 2 side. But yeah, obviously, I only known them as a national team. So
they've had some decent investment from Piqué. So yeah, they're up sort of competing in the Segunda now for the first time in quite some time. So
interesting. Yeah. So yeah, club and country play for Andorra for both club and country. Some of the players. Yeah,
you never get a time off. Yeah, looking forward to the international break. They say. We'll move on to best long shots again. Those bets will be available in Matchbook Insights. And look, the best long shots records going on the screen: 6 wins, 18 losses, but you'd be up plus over £250 if you had £20 stake on the Matchbook Betting Exchange with 2% commission, and you can add that extra bit of profit by getting the value by backing those singles on the Matchbook Betting Exchange. And one bet that wouldn't have been included in those figures, Adrian, is Wolves and both teams to score last week or 2 weeks ago. You're literally, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Let's just do it again. So take it away. Why Wolves and both teams to score? Yeah.
Well, they're a Fulham, and I just don't rate Fulham. I don't rate this Fulham side highly at all. They don't have a goal scorer, and that's a problem. I think without Bernd Leno and without Joao Paulinho, Fulham would be in the relegation mix. You know, they're a pretty average team at the moment. Maybe I could include Marco Silva in that as well. I think he's a good manager, but yeah, they're not great, and I think that they're certainly beatable at Craven Cottage in this game. We know what Wolves are like. Gary O'Neill has absolutely transformed them. They've gone from being one of the most boring teams in Premier League history that were involved in so many, low scoring matches to being the entertainers. Really, they will go for it. They'll be so positive. They're playing like a top half side. You look at the fixtures they've had, Wolves as well. They've played so many, obviously at home, played so many of the top teams already, yet they find themselves in mid-table. So for me, Wolves are top half material this season. Much better going forward than they were. I think that in terms of Wolves matches, both teams to score has landed in 10 of their 12 games. It's landed in 9 straight games for Wolves as well. And I don't think it's that much of a stretch to expect them to win this game against Fulham. They've scored in every match so far this season, barring that 1-0 loss at Old Trafford on the opening weekend, where they should have had a penalty right at the end of the game. Very, very controversial defeat. So yeah, I just think that Wolves can go to Fulham and win. Fulham's 3 wins, by the way, are coming against Luton, Sheffield United, and Everton. So they've not beaten any top sides as such so far. So yeah, look, I just think that Wolves are a little bit big here, and the price is appealing. Yeah, because if Wolves are going to win, because they're a little bit leaky at the back, because they're so positive, that there is a possibility they could concede even against this sort of shot shy Fulham outfit.
Joao Paulinho is suspended as well, Adrian.
Oh, well, I didn't know it. Didn't know that. So even better. So yeah, I think I feel even more bullish about this. Obviously, It's a long shot for a reason, but I think there have been far less likely outcomes at a price like this that we've backed this season than this.
6.8 currently on the Matchbook Betting Exchange. Mark, Scottish Premiership, a rare foray on this podcast to the Scottish Premiership. Talk to us about your thinking here and why you're leading for Ross County versus Kilmarnock.
Yeah, so Ross County to win and under 2.5 goals, about 5-1,
Classic.
6.0. You're basically backing Ross County to win 1-0 or 2-0 for 2 main reasons, really. Firstly, Ross County dismissed Malky Mackay during the international break and made the surprise move, the audacious move, the impressive move to bring Derek Adams back to the club from Morecambe, where he's achieved minor miracles, really. He's very highly thought of at Dingwall because of the work he's done over previous stints in Scotland and with Ross County. So kind of banking on a bit of a bounce from Ross County in this fixture. And secondly, Kilmarnock are favourites here, and it's not something I can subscribe to whatsoever. They are in the top 6. They are 6 points better off than Ross County. However, they are just chalk and cheese between home and away. At home, they've got an artificial surface, which has aided their results at home, but they've struggled to translate that to away form. And this season, they have picked up, I think, 2 points from 6 away games. But since the start of last season, their record on the road in the Scottish Premiership is 2 wins and 19 defeats from 25. And that includes 2 losses, 2-0 when travelling to Ross County last season. And yeah, this season of those 6 away games, they've only played 1 Old Firm team away from home as well. So 5 of those fixtures have been, in theory, winnable fixtures, and they've fluffed their lines quite a lot. If you do exclude the Old Firm, Ross County have won 1, drawn 1, lost 1 at home this season. They should be competitive. They should be highly motivated to impress their new manager in the dugout, and just that away record for Kilmarnock. Plus, this being the longest away day in the Scottish Premiership this season, it's around about a 4-hour car journey between the 2 clubs, the 2 cities. All kind of builds into my argument for Ross County deserve a bit more respect in the market, and I think 5-1 for them to win by 1-0 or 2-0 does appeal.
Yeah, might play it safe and maybe double them up, but with a Ross County Wolves to win. But if you want those long shots, Ross County under 2.5 goals, 6.0, and Wolves above seems to score 6.8. Compelling cases from the guys. We'll stick with you, Mark, because this is a very fascinating double you've outlined for us here. So it involves Chesterfield and James McLean's Wrexham.
Yeah, just keeping it simple, really. I'm going to back the home win double, a 1.95. Wrexham to beat Morecambe and Chesterfield to beat Eastleigh. Wrexham kind of created that unnecessary furore, really, with that inflammatory tweet about Accrington last weekend. Came back to bite them. They suffered their first defeat in 9 League 2 matches, but they're back at the Racecourse Ground this weekend, where they've been fairly formidable, at least going forward. They've won 6 of 9 games. They've scored twice or more in all 9. They've scored 3 goals or more in 6 of those 9 matches as well. And as I mentioned there, Derek Adams left Morecambe this week, which is a big body blow for the Shrimps, who have suffered back-to-back losses recently, as well as losing 5 of 6 trips to teams outside of the bottom 2 in League 2. And then you've got Chesterfield, who are, unsurprisingly, really just dominating the National League, considering the budget they have is far superior to any other in that division. After 20 rounds of action, they're 5 points clear, actually. No, they're 8 points clear. Sorry, Barnet lost on Wednesday night. And they've won 16 of those 20 fixtures, including beating Barnet 4-2 at home a fortnight ago. At home, they've won 8 of 9 unbeaten matches. They've scored twice or more in 8 of 9. They've scored 3 goals or more in 7 of those 9 as well, which is quite impressive stuff. Now, Eastleigh have won back-to-back games, but both came at home. They've lost half of their away days. And despite sitting in mid-table, there are a full 20 points difference between the 2 teams. So quite happy to back the home win double, Wrexham and Chesterfield at 195.
Let's do it. Adrian, the
couldn't
tough
beat
sheet
Southend, though, could they? They couldn't beat the mighty Southend last week. Chesterfield. So, yeah. But yeah, no, it's a good shout.
Adrian, former Southend player, of course. Tough Sheet Community Stadium, Adrian, is the 4th name that stadium has had since 2014. Bring back the good old glory days of the Reebok Stadium, I say.
Yeah, you got to be careful. You got to be careful when you're commentating at that ground, and you don't want to say that name wrong. Look, my best bet is Bolton to beat Exeter and under 3.5 goals. If I start with the under 3.5 goals, amazingly, Exeter matches have been really low scoring all season, so they're pretty solid. They're well organised, but they really have a goal scorer as such. I think their top scorer is on 3. Who's a lonely attacking midfield player. None of their strikers have really clicked yet. Exeter, 15 of their 16 matches in League One have gone under 3.5 goals. League One, by the way, has been the lowest scoring division in the EFL or across the top 4 divisions in English football this season. For whatever reason, it's not normally the case, but it is this year. It's been a bit cagier. 11 of 16 Bolton matches have also gone under 3.5. So I don't think Bolton will run away with it. Bolton are flying. They're just absolutely on fire at the moment. They've won 7 of their last 8 league games. They've won 10 of their last 11 in all competitions. Haven't conceded a goal in their last 5 in all comps, Bolton Wanderers. I do like Ian Evatt. I think he's a really, really good coach. Dion Charles is the main striker, but they're not just relying on him. They're just a really, really solid team. And they're overwhelming favourites to beat an absolutely out-of-form Exeter, who have lost 7 of their last 8 games. They've taken 1 point, Exeter, since mid-September. They've had 5 blanks in the last 8 games as well. They don't, they just, as I said, they don't have a big scorer. Their goalkeeper, statistically, their goalkeeper has also been an absolute saviour for them, preventing, I think, according to Opta, prevented 6.6 extra goals, which is the most of any keeper in that league. So for me, it feels like a home banker, Bolton to beat Exeter. And when you look at the numbers involving under 3.5 goals for both teams, it makes sense to pair them. And the price is decent. Lovely jump to 2.28, which I think is very backable.
Okay, Bolton and under 3.5 goals, and the double Wrexham and Chesterfield for best bets. For Mark, my thanks to the guys. Before we go, if you are watching on the YouTube stream, great numbers on the live stream. Do take 2 seconds to hit that like button. Be much appreciated for all the guys, and helps us get our content out to a wider audience. My thanks to Mark and Adrian. We will be back on Monday to cover the Champions League as the relentless football kicks off from now until Christmas. We will chat to you on Monday. Enjoy the weekend's football, and do check out the Matchbook Betting Exchange. Bye-bye.